Doom Eternal is and will most likely be one of the best games I play this year. But at the same time, I struggle to sit down and play it for more than a couple of hours at a time. Why is that? Doom Eternal is the sequel to Doom 2016, developed by id Software and released back in 2016. And boy, does it fulfill that role. When asked if Eternal is fun, or if someone should pick up Eternal, I pretty much answered the same thing every time. Did you enjoy Doom 2016? If yes, then you should get Eternal. If no, I would most likely pass, or at the very least wait for a sale. The reason I've been saying this is that Eternal is very iterative of Doom 2016, but in a good way. Doom 2016 is one of the best single-player FPS campaigns to date, and Eternal takes that formula and turns it up a notch with the addition of new mechanics, enemies, weapons, and locations. Throughout this video, I'm not going to go out of my way to spoil story beats, but I will be showing footage from throughout the game and talking about mechanics and enemies you encounter further into the game, so if you haven't beaten the game yet and you don't want to be spoiled, proceed with caution. This is your warning, so if I do spoil something for you going forward, that's on you. Doom 2016 was built upon a fairly simple premise if you boil the game down to its core. Traverse a level that is linear to some degree, with lots of collectibles hidden if you venture off the beaten path, and while traversing these levels you encounter various combat arenas, where you must kill all the demons however you see fit, and then move on to the next combat arena. During combat you can approach it in a variety of different ways by using all the different weapons at your disposal. But to do this, there were two main mechanics: glory kill demons to get health, and chainsaw demons to get ammo. Doom Eternal takes this formula and, like I mentioned earlier, builds upon it. Now, instead of just glory kills and chainsawing demons, there is an added third layer being the Flame Belcher. The Flame Belcher allows the player to set demons on fire, and then by dealing damage or killing the demon, you're given armor. This is a pleasant addition to the combat formula, as it adds one more thing that you, the player, must juggle during the intense battles Doom Eternal throws at you. Just like Doom 2016, the player can basically approach the combat encounters in whatever way they find most effective or fun given the player. They do this through a combination of different weapons, mods, and grenades. You can really do anything from just mow down all your enemies with a mobile turret, to take long range potshots with your heavy cannon, to thin out the horde before jumping in. My personal favorite late game combo was the use of the super shotgun with all the upgrades, so that whenever you use the meat hook, the demons would be set on fire, allowing you to swing around like Spider-Man and blast them. Not only does this deal good damage, you'll also get armor since they're on fire. This, accompanied by the rune that slows down time when using your alt fire, really seemed to be an effective combo. One thing to note is that Doom Eternal does remove the unlimited ammo pistol from Doom 2016, and instead just starts you off with the combat shotgun. So the player must always be aware that they can run out of ammo. This is fine though, because for the most part the pistol was useless, and I would venture to guess most people never used it once finding the other weapons. Eternal does a good job having trash in the combat arenas that you can always chainsaw for ammo, so outside of a few select situations, I never had issues running out of ammo. Doom Eternal has a pretty consistent difficulty curve. Throughout the game, new and stronger demons are introduced, but at the same time, you are also upgrading your weapons and character, so there's really never a point where I thought the game became unfair. Sure, you're most likely going to die a ton of times, or at least if you're me you will, but when those deaths happen, for the most part it's due to player error, and trust me, I make a lot of those. That is besides the Marauder. I absolutely hate that thing. If you get too close, he shotguns you. If you get too far, he throws projectiles at you. So you have to stay in this perfect little mid-range zone and wait for his eyes to turn green so you can attack him, otherwise he just blocks you with his shield. I found the Marauder extremely annoying. Every other demon I fought was enjoyable and never ruined the flow of combat except him. All the other demons, once you learn how to effectively fight them, flow well into the combat cycle. But even later in the game, when I got the hang of how to kill Marauders, they were still a huge pain in the ass, and was one of the few things in this game that I absolutely dreaded. Like I mentioned, the rest of the demons are fun to fight, and late game a lot of the big enemies can be taken down with a single swing of your crucible, as long as you have the energy to do so. I also enjoyed how the last few levels of the game took what was already a high octane combat experience and turned it up another notch, throwing basically everything it can at you. The BFG obviously makes its return and does its job just as it always does, as a way to clear a massive amount of enemies in a room. However, this is at the cost of limited ammo that you cannot regenerate from chainsawing enemies. The BFG also puts in amazing work against the bosses of the game, especially the game's final boss, which without the BFG would have been an absolute chore to beat. Hell, even with the BFG, the thing was a bitch and a half to take down. The Unmaker also makes a return in Eternal as a secret weapon that you unlock by completing all of the Slayer gates. This harkens back to old game design where cool things are actually unlocked by accomplishing tasks in game rather than just pulling out your credit card. I'm a huge fan of this, even if most people will probably never see or use the Unmaker, assuming they only play through the game once. Plus, if you actually go through the effort of unlocking it, the Unmaker absolutely shreds, so there's that too. Outside of combat, Doom Eternal adds to the formula set by Doom 2016 with the mostly new platforming and slight puzzle solving. And I say slight because most of the puzzles basically solve themselves. It's something along the lines of shoot this door to open it and then move quickly through said door before it closes, or turn multiple beams of light onto a point of interest to open a door. Now I'm not going to sit here and just bash on the platforming and the puzzles and say that they're terrible, but at best they just exist. They are clearly the weaker part of the game, however, that's fine. They serve as a much needed break from the high octane combat encounters and allow the player to figuratively catch their breath, because damn, those combat encounters are exhausting, especially as you get further into the game and more demons are thrown at you. These high intensity battles keep you on the edge of your seat the whole way through, and it's the main reason that I struggled to sit down and play Eternal for long stretches of time. Throughout the game, progression and customization are handled in various ways. Outside of the weird battle pass, which I mean, yay battle passes, I just love them so much, the game allows you to progress your character through the unlocking of new weapons, upgrading said weapons, and also upgrading and customizing your character himself. Each of the weapons beside the Super Shotgun, BFG, and Unmaker have two different mods that you can unlock by finding the mod bot in the world. Once you unlock a mod, you're able to upgrade it using points earned from the various combat encounters, and then once you unlock all the perks, there's a special ability you can unlock by fulfilling a specific task or by using a mastery token that is once again found in the world. This is where the flaming meat hook I mentioned earlier comes from. Besides the weapons are a variety of ways to enhance the character himself. Through the use of Sentinel Crystals, you can pick from different perks that you unlock by picking a combination of two buffs, these being health points, armor, and ammo. This is a unique way to do this because unlike a lot of games where you can just spend all your points maxing out one thing first, you are forced to diversify if you want to get those perks. However, if you want all HP first or all armor first, there is nothing stopping you. Next, there are the runes which you find throughout the campaign. You're given the choice of 3 runes at once that give you various enhancements and change your skills. My go-to at the end of the game was Saving Throw, which allows you to survive a death blow, Air Control, which is self-explained by the name, and then Chrono Strike, which is the previously mentioned mechanic that slows down time when using your alt-fire. Last but not least, there is another section of upgrades you acquire through the use of Predator Suit points that are broken up into 5 categories: Exploration, Environment, your Frag Grenade, your Ice Bomb, and the Fundamentals. All of these different unlockables and customization really incentivize exploration in the world because that is how you find a lot of the currency to do most of it. Back at your ship, the Fortress of Doom, you can also use Sentinel batteries that you find to unlock different armor sets or get extra of the various upgrade currencies as you see fit. For your average player who's just going to play the campaign once and maybe mess around with the challenges and dip into the battle mode a little bit, Eternal probably offers between 15 to 20 hours of gameplay. However, for those who crave more, there are a lot of things to do. Anything from finding all the collectibles throughout the campaign, getting all the different armor sets, beating all the bonus combat encounters, playing master levels, or just sinking some time into the aforementioned battle mode. Doom Eternal, as expected, looks and sounds great. Not only do the sound effects for various things sound amazing, the soundtrack absolutely adds to the experience. What should be mentioned too is that despite its pretty looking nature, Doom Eternal seems to be extremely well optimized. I'm not going to get super technical here because honestly I lack that knowledge, but I was able to play through the whole game on my pretty average rig, which is an i7 4790K with a 1070, while streaming through OBS and recording footage using NVIDIA GeForce, and I basically had no frame drops below 60, so not bad for a game that looks this great. So that pretty much wraps up my opinions on the campaign, and before we briefly touch on the battle mode, I want to talk about some of the notable exclusions from Doom Eternal. These are the regular deathmatch style multiplayer and snap map from the franchise's previous entry. The exclusion of Snap Map is a huge bummer, as fans being able to create content for a game always gives players tons more to do, and all sorts of cool things were added in Snap Map. At first I was also pretty bummed about the exclusion of the regular multiplayer. However, the lack of it makes sense the more I think about it. Doom Eternal really ramped up the movement mechanics, with the addition of the dash on a very short cooldown. I think that this mechanic alone would have killed a traditional style multiplayer, as players would have been flying all over the place. Sure, they could have just turned the mechanic off for it, but then there'd be this weird disconnect between campaign and multiplayer mechanics. That, coupled with Doom 2016's multiplayer not really being that popular anyways, could be what led to its exclusion. I know some people argue the reason Doom 2016's multiplayer wasn't that popular was all the weird design choices they made instead of keeping it faithful to old school Doom. While I do agree to some extent, it's hard to say if the game would have been any more successful if it had been more faithful. It could very well spend tons of time developing a traditional arena multiplayer that once again is mostly ignored. So, was it the mechanics of the game or just a desire to save dev time? I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, the game is still very much a complete package without it. Plus hey, this time we should get single player DLC instead of multiplayer DLC, and that I'm a fan of. I'm pretty sure they confirmed this, so I look forward to the single player DLC this time around, as I thought it was a huge bummer that Doom 2016 didn't get any single player DLC, and instead we got a bunch of DLC for the multiplayer, which I didn't play a whole ton of. Now that that's out of the way, let's just briefly touch on battle mode before wrapping up the video. If I'm honest with you guys, it just really isn't my jam. From the few people I interacted with in game chat, it does seem that some are enjoying it, but to me this just seems like a mode people will check out after finishing the campaign, play for maybe an hour or two, and then move on to something else. I do think the mode is somewhat original, and it is cool to see them try something like this out. However, like I mentioned, I just don't find it enjoyable. I think this type of mode accompanying a regular multiplayer could have been pretty cool, but this as a standalone multiplayer just doesn't really seem to do it, and just doesn't have enough weight to it to be the only offering. There's also a ton of dead time not actually playing between searching, pre-game lobbies, and the in-between round sections where you choose all your upgrades. Then, when you finally get to play the rounds, they're extremely quick. So I'm pretty sure I spend more time not playing than I do actually playing. The mode also kinda gives me Evolve vibes, but a little less fleshed out, and at the same time reminds me of the Demon Runes from Doom 2016's multiplayer that they threw together some arenas for and then tossed you in there. So do I hate the mode? Not really. But if I was never able to play it again, I wouldn't be too heartbroken about it. So there you go. There are all my thoughts on Doom Eternal. The game is an absolute blast, and any fan of the genre should 100% pick it up either now or when it eventually goes on sale. Even though the game could be pretty exhausting to play at times, I always wanted to get back in after a short break. Doom Eternal's campaign is absolutely amazing and definitely does have some replayability to it, but the absence of a proper multiplayer mode and snap map hurts its case. So we're just gonna have to wait and see what the rest of the year gives us and then make our determination. There's the video. If you follow the channel, you know these days I rarely make full reviews for games, especially new games, so I hope you enjoyed this. It takes a lot longer to put stuff like this together than it does my normal videos, so while I do enjoy making them, I'll probably reserve it to games that I have a passion for or something I really want to talk about. Anyways, if for some reason you want to see my playthrough of Doom Eternal, you can find all the VODs over at my Twitch, which is twitch.tv/Arrrash with 3 R's, or if you want to read my random thoughts, you can follow me over on Twitter at Arrrash with 4 R's, and I'll see you guys next time.